All right, in today's video, we are going to be reacting to what some people have said is the most underrated footballer in football. Spurs legend, if I'm being honest. Now, I have reacted to Moussa Dembele on my Patreon. Player highlight videos that use game footage, they just get blocked on YouTube, just flat out blocked. So if you go over to my Patreon for $1 a month, you can see the highlight videos and videos that get blocked on YouTube for just $1. So go check that out if you want to see. I've already reacted to his player highlights, but let's get into the story. I don't know anything about him as a person or player. By the way, this original video is by not by Daily Dose of Football. That's who I've been reacting to. This is by the Retro Route.
In the Villeurbanne district of Belgium's biggest city, Antwerp, Moussa Sidi Yaya Dembele was born during the summer of 1987 to a Belgian mother and Malian father. At the age of 16, he made a move to the Pro League side Germinal Beerschot, where he spent a year in the youth categories before debuting in the purple shirt towards the end of the 2003-04 season. After a year as a pro, he transferred to Willem II, a Tilburg-based club in the Dutch Eredivisie, where he picked up almost double the game.
I don't know anything about the Dutch league. I need to. There's so much of football I gotta learn. So if you would go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because there is so much to learn here, and I'm going to. That's my goal, to learn everything there is to know about football, everything, history, leagues, teams, players, everything. So that's a lot. So subscribe for the journey.
Game time, and quickly became prolific for the struggling side. The division had taken notice, and Louis van Gaal acted quickly in snatching him up for his AZ Alkmaar side, who had just finished as runners-up to PSV. Under a seasoned vet like Van Gaal, the team was bound to develop and narrow the gap between his current level and the considerable potential. In the north, he did just that. As a mainstay of a team very desperate for a second ever championship, Dembele featured heavily throughout their campaign. Deployed either out wide or in the number 10 role, he was a vital asset going forward. Encouraged by the Dutchman to travel with the ball, he gained the confidence to run directly at defences who struggled to...
All right, so that's brave. Those are players that, like, man. Those players to me are rare, that I find a player, I guess not rare, but I find a player who are willing to travel with the ball at their feet for that long of a distance. I don't think that that's a play style that a lot of players do. A lot of players will try to make runs into good position because they don't want the ball at their feet that long. I know for a fact, because I've been training in the gym, trying to play, just amateur level, trying to play some competitive in a competitive league, even just an amateur league here in the United States. And that's what I do. I don't want to travel with the ball at my feet too long. My touch is terrible. I want to be able to make runs, decisive runs, and get the ball at my foot for a split second so I can make a good pass or finish a goal. So much respect to players who travel that far a distance on a pitch.
Oppress him on his day. 10 goal contributions and solid performances across the months helped AZ push the holders all the way to the final day of the season, but a 3-2 loss to Excelsior left them full of despair in third.
Wow.
A promising year had amounted to nothing, and an even worse season followed, ending up in the table's bottom half, which impelled Van Gaal to depart the rotting club.
Dang.
However, the squad banded together and convinced the gaffer to stay for 2008-09, which, after a rocky start, saw AZ get back on track. With 3 goals to his name inside the opening month, a knee injury ruled out the midfielder until the new year. Yet the team withheld the urge to collapse, and by his return after Christmas, Kaskoppen had set themselves up nicely to land the title. Dembele returned to the pitch a new man, determined to get AZ over the line this time. Now in his 20s, he was dictatorial in the centre, confidently cruising through opposition lines and occasionally smashing home some extraordinary efforts.
Wow.
On the last match day, a Belgian brace brought his total to a career high of 10 for the season, as finally, after a 28-year drought, AZ sealed the Dutch Eredivisie. Identified as a league standout, Dembele's versatility on the offence, as well as his defensive capabilities, proved just how complete the youngster had become. That July, they doubled down on the trophies, demolishing Heerenveen 5-1 for the Johan Cruyff Shield. After a decade in the Netherlands, he relocated to the English capital, joining the ranks of Fulham, who edged out Birmingham City in the battle for the Belgian signature.
I gotta say, I do like Fulham quite a bit. That was one of my when I was just getting into football, I thought perhaps Fulham might be the club that I support, but alas, I found Spurs.
The common challenges that a foreigner faces when adjusting to the Premier League are twofold: pace and physicality, and while the tempo of the game was a challenge, the aggression of English football came quite naturally to him. The Belgian enjoyed going shoulder to shoulder and battling for the ball in the middle of the park, so as soon as he adapted to the quickness, Dembele settled in West London. Needing to up the goal scoring, Mark Hughes liked him in the advanced role, pushing him as high as second striker at times to support and provide for Clint Dempsey and Bobby Zamora.
Oh, Clint Dempsey, the American legend. Oh, Clint Dempsey.
The Europa League runners-up stayed unbeaten in August with 3 draws, but couldn't seal maximum points until Dembele converted both the leveller and 90th minute decider at Craven Cottage versus Wolves.
Dembele fancies it!
Away from the Prem, the Antwerp native claimed a landslide majority in the vote for Fulham's goal of the season, having ripped Spurs to shreds single-handedly and comfortably advancing to the next round of the FA Cup. Clinical in the must-win matches, while plucky against Chelsea at the Bridge and visiting the Etihad, they ended a tumultuous season in 8th place. The Belgian had showcased both his technical class and attitude in his first BPL year, though into his second, Dembele became even more comfortable as Hughes' resignation made way for Martin Jol. The Dutchman brought a familiar approach to the game for Dembele, both tactically and stylistically, deciding to deploy him in a creative central role closer to the middle of the park, freeing him to have a hand in everything. Less concerned with his stats and sensing the manager's trust, he relished the increased time on the ball as a box-to-box midfielder alongside the skipper Danny Murphy. This was clearly his true calling, and despite the club's poorer finish, it had been a revolutionary year for the Belgian, who Jol tried his utmost to keep a hold of. But in late August of 2012, Tottenham Hotspur triggered his £15 million release clause, bringing him to the Lily-Whites of North London. Agreeing to join Spurs at the time of transition, Mourinho's understudy Andre Villas-Boas was taking over as manager, greeting the Belgian amongst a stacked transfer window in which they splashed over £50 million, declaring their keenness to compete. Funded mostly by the sales of Luka Modric and Rafael van der Vaart.
I love Luka Modric, man. Oh my. One of those players where it's just like, every time I see the guy, it just puts a big smile on my face. I like Luka Modric a lot, even though he plays for Real Madrid.
Dembele was viewed as a replacement for the Croatian, who now at Madrid left big boots to fill. Punting a vicious grass cutter past Norwich on his debut, White Hart Lane was reminded of his quality, and as the weeks went by, he assured the fans that it wasn't beginner's luck. Sharing the line mostly with Scott Parker and Sandro, he brought a needed level of assertiveness, relaxing everyone when in possession and helping initiate counterattacks.
He's so good at
Those
making
initial
runs with
2
the
years
ball.
at Spurs were good, featuring in over 40 games per season, including Europa League minutes, creating some excellent memories for the supporters.
I think that, even in my reaction to him on Patreon, I think that to me was the thing that stood out was that he was able to be still very quality while making long runs long distance runs with the ball. So like you see him maneuvering with it quite easily. Hey there, we'll get back to your video in just 1 second. First, let me show you something cool that I'm doing over on Patreon. I am reacting to key games in the 1986 World Cup over on Patreon. Now, something that's really cool that I'm able to do, I was reacting to the USSR and Belgium in this game where the USSR lost a heartbreaker in extra time versus Belgium in the 1986 World Cup. But look, I'm able to actually show game footage. Like, I'm actually able to react to the game highlights and do some research on the 1986 World Cup over here. This is stuff that I cannot upload on YouTube because it will get blocked. FIFA doesn't like it when I react to their stuff. But you can find these matches. I'm doing all the key games from the 1986 World Cup. When we get to the final, which I know Argentina are victorious in the 1986 World Cup. When we get to the final, I'm going to live stream with all of those people who have subscribed at the $5 tier, just $5 a month, and you'll get the entire tournament, all the reactions to all the games, but not just the 1986 World Cup. We will also be doing 2002, 1994. We'll also be doing Champions League finals. We'll also be doing FA Cup finals. We've got a lot of stuff that I'm going to be doing over there on the $5 a month tier on Patreon. So please go check it out. I'm sure you're going to be excited about this kind of content. It's a lot of fun. I can't do it on YouTube, but I will do it on Patreon, and I'll see you guys over there. The link is in the description. All right, sorry for that rude interruption. All right, let's get back to the video.
And becoming a fan favourite. Still, he was lacking an identity, which came soon after the summer of 2014 and the arrival of Mauricio Pochettino. The Argentine's Southampton success convinced Daniel Levy to appoint him as the club's 10th manager in 12 years, and in a squad with plenty of talent, Dembele had to compete for his spot. The coach...
Honestly, okay, I'm going to have to stop. This is not a Spurs video. This is a video about Dembele. But man, that just doesn't give me a lot of hope. Like, I really like Ange Postecoglou, and I want him to work as the manager for Spurs. That doesn't give me a lot of hope that he's going to last. It just feels like we keep bringing in quality manager after quality manager. They do a pretty good job. We can't make anything happen. And then we sack the manager and start over again. And it's just, I hope this works out because I really do like Ange. And I think he has the right mentality to win. And his history has been he wins everywhere he goes. But that was the history of Mourinho. That's the history of, all right.
Wanted to integrate more academy players, and thus the Belgians' place wasn't secure. In his 10 starts, he was part of a midfield duo, sat under the number 10 Christian Eriksen as the aggressor of a defensive line. No central midfielders were brought in across 2015's transfer windows, and
I didn't know Eriksen played for Spurs. My Spurs history is lacking. I just watched him play in the Euros. He's still a very quality player, even at his age.
Given Spurs' adequate but overall unimpressive domestic performance, typified by a League Cup final beating at the hand of Mourinho's Blues, Pochettino opted to make a change. Witnessing a year of him in training had made the Argentines certain that this unorthodox midfielder could become a key player in his system. Needing to cut down on conceding, the defensive addition of Toby Alderweireld to partner fellow compatriot Jan Vertonghen at centre-half was a solid start, which he added to by making Musa a cornerstone in the middle, recognising his aptitude at winning back possession and redistributing it with utter coolness. The difference was immediate, as Spurs became far more rigid at the back, leaking fewer goals and countering more swiftly. The young team was noticeably fitter than the rest of the league, and the Lily-Whites entered an underdog's title race with Leicester in 2016. Within reaching distance...
It's hard to say. Kind of glad we didn't do that. That's a story for the ages. Leicester City winning that Premier League title. Kind of glad we didn't mess that up, actually. Even though it would have been awesome for Spurs to win the trophy.
Distance of a first ever Premier League title. The Battle of the Bridge came about in early May, a hyper-aggressive London derby between the challengers and the champions, which saw Spurs receive a record 9 bookings as a 2-0 lead was overturned by a frustrated Chelsea side, who simply wanted to ruin the party.
Dang.
They did exactly that, as that single point left the gap between them and the Foxes too vast. As footage emerged in the game's aftermath, the FA noticed that Dembele had showcased the nasty side of his personality by attempting to eye-gouge Diego Costa and slapped him with a 6-game ban. Spurs didn't allow a close shave to extinguish their spark, and the start of 16-17 was brilliant even without Musa, who stepped right back into his crucial role from mid-September, continuing to help the Londoners tick. As was the case with every member of the Tottenham contingent, the Belgians' profile was growing, earning recognition from pundits, journalists and fans alike, all of whom had now come to understand the secret genius of Spurs. With 30 just around the corner, injuries didn't come as a shock, and his ankle helped interrupt his hectic intro to a campaign in which Spurs appeared to have a second run at the title. Their defensive solidarity and excessive scoring made them tough to beat, only losing twice by February as the fight for gold became a 2-horse race. Up against Antonio Conte's redefined Chelsea, a few too many draws and painful defeat at the Olympic Stadium kept them dreaming.
That was tough.
Soon after their ultimate game at White Hart Lane, Dembele underwent surgery for his ankle, and there was a cumulative belief that he would never return to full fitness. Nonetheless, he remained one of the Argentines' irreplaceables going into his 6th Spurs season, which ironically was amongst his finest years to date.
Really?
By the new year, he was undeniably the most efficient midfielder in England, achieving the highest success rate of passes and dribbles, while even more low-lying in the mid. February was a busy month for the Lily-Whites, visiting Liverpool before hosting the North London derby, and then journeying to Turin for the Champions League round of 16. Starting all 3 fixtures, Musa's power helped them to a draw at Anfield, and then was exceptional against Arsenal, whose midfield 3 couldn't cope with his strength and awareness. The highlight of his campaign, though, came in Italy. In his first ever UCL knockout match, he outran, outclassed, and simply overwhelmed the old ladies' elite-level midfield in their 2-2 draw at the Allianz. Wow. The return leg didn't go their way, but for many this proved the ilk of midfielder Tottenham possessed, and to think he's 30, it made people imagine just
the second leg didn't go their way. When has it gone our way? When has it gone our way?
Just how valuable he'd be if 5 years younger. Without scoring a single goal, nor claiming an assist all year, the Belgian was recognised as one of Europe's finest midfield performers, underlined by his glimpses of quality in the World Cup, registering 200 minutes as Belgium battered England for 3rd place, their greatest performance ever in the tournament. All went swimmingly at the start of 18-19, continuing to enthrall the Premier League unperturbed, until a November game at Wolves' Molineux, when he sustained further and more extreme damage to an ankle ligament inside 7 minutes. The worst fear of all had been realised, and the medics knew he wouldn't step foot on a pitch for months. Aged 32, he knew this had been coming, and Dembele decided that, after 6 years and 250 appearances in North London, it was time to leave. In 2019's January window, Chinese Super League club Beijing Guan paid £11 million, giving him a relaxed and rewarding...
Dude, so he missed the Champions League final? It's hard to say. It would have been nice to have him for that Champions League final.
In conclusion to an 18-year career, opting to retire in 2022.
Love you guys.
Whenever asked who's the best player you've played with, those who've had the privilege would drop the same name without thinking twice.
Moussa Dembele.
Dembele.
Moussa Dembele.
Moussa Dembele for me. Moussa Dembele.
I think Moussa Dembele.
Moussa Dembele.
Moussa.
Wow.
Dembele.
He probably could have gone on and won the Ballon d'Or. That's how good he was.
Teammates, opponents, pundits and number one fan Pochettino would never miss a chance to praise the midfielder.
For me, I put him in next to Ronaldinho, Maradona,
Really?
Okocha.
Really? Man, it's one of those things where I guess you have to be there and watch him play. To me, he just seems like one of those, like, oh, he's a world-class player. He's, deserving, of a professional contract. Honestly, one of the better, like one of the really key contributors on a team that's fighting for a title. So but to put him at Ballon d'Or level, I didn't realize he was even on that level of a player.
He's one of the unbelievable talent in the history of football.
Described as a monster with ballerina feet, Moussa Dembele was a footballing one-off. Capable of dribbling through an entire team without breaking a sweat, he was a beautifully delicate bully with a tough edge and occasional mean streak, who couldn't be robbed of the ball.
For me, in a five-a-side, he's the best player in the world.
Truly a player the streets won't forget. The art of dummying and feints he had down to a T, creating acres of space purely by dropping his shoulder. He could beat a marker without even touching the ball. Whether you got tight to him or stood off, he could humiliate you, specialising in inviting pressure to create space before offloading the ball at a perfect time, like a vacuum cleaner. For much of his career, he slid under the radar of most due to his reserved approach to getting forward, which impacted his stats. However, any who watched Dembele in Pochettino's team especially can appreciate his impact, and there is a belief among the team that lost the Champions League final just 5 months after his departure that if he had stayed fit, the result would have been different. There's no doubt that should he have come to Spurs in his early 20s instead of midway through them, we could be talking about a different Dembele, one who was then snatched up by a European heavyweight, lifted the major prizes and became one of his generation's best. He really was that good.
Wow. So it sounds like he was kind of robbed of that career, that level of career. Wow. All right, well, if you enjoyed the video, slap like on it for me. That would definitely help, and I'll see you guys in the next one.